What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones, and as you can probably tell by his backdrop, or should be able to tell by his backdrop, AJ's in Chestnut Hill in Conte Forum following North Carolina's 76-66 win over Boston College. Probably had to hide out a little bit today, right, AJ? Probably replacing the ice on the floor as we speak.
Yeah, took a picture of it. You can see. So it was loud as hell in there, and I couldn't do anything in there. We tried a couple spots, the Wi-Fi brutal in the concourse. So I'm like, jarred the door a little, and this is where the post-game press conference was. So I figured I would do it here. I got good signal too. I got a full signal in here, so this should be good.
Yeah,
this should work.
Nice backdrop.
We shouldn't get interrupted anytime.
Yeah, fingers crossed the Wi-Fi stays as good as it has been. But AJ, I'm going to go ahead and roll through some stats from today's 10-point win. RJ Davis leading the way, 16 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. Cormac Ryan, 14 points. Harrison Ingram, double-double for him, 11 points, 13 boards. Mondo Baycott, close to a double-double, but not quite, 10 points, 9 rebounds. Jalen Withers put in 9 points as well, and Elliot Cadeau had 8 points and 5 assists. So another nice win for the Tar Heels, 8 straight wins, 7-0 in ACC play for the first time since 2015, 2016. It's just, if you're a Carolina fan, a pretty good time to be one. Hey, let's dive into it, though. Talk about the first half in particular. I know fouls was a big – I think today, and I think college basketball in general can be an absolutely brutal watch at times. I think they call way too many fouls. I've said it many a times. But it seemed like today, at least on Twitter and from the fans, this is the most I've seen fans frustrated about a refereeing, game from the ref's perspective, and particularly in that first half. A ton of fouls in the first half. Armando Baycott in foul trouble, particularly with the bigs. Carolina struggled a little bit down there. We saw a lot of unorthodox lineups as well. Okonkwo played a lot, especially in the first half, more minutes than he's seen as a guy who rarely plays, and especially in ACC play. Carolina still leads by 3 at halftime, though. So a weird first half in a lot of different ways. But again, Carolina still wins. It leads at the half, and it goes on to win the game. So, but talk to me a little bit of that first half as someone who was actually in the building.
In an era where the media gets pushed further and further away from the court, we actually get to sit on the baseline here, just behind a couple of rows of fans and the dance team. So I got a great vantage point of a lot of things that we don't always get to see that we used to always get back in the day. And I'll tell you, the officiating was really bad, but it was bad both ways. Carolina got away with like 7 or 8 obvious travels. It was some really bad ones. And there were some fouls called that weren't fouls. There was an out-of-bounds play. They called it out on BC, and it was clearly out, I think, off Jalen Washington. So it all evened out in the end. But it did affect the game, and it forced Hubert to dig into his bench. But I am a big proponent of having to go out of character, out of the norm, off script to win on the road in league play. And when you do that, it just fortifies you that much more. So in the first half, Carolina was whistled for 12 fouls. And mind you, the last game out, they had 13. 9 of them were big guys. It was Armando, Baycott, Withers, or Armando is Baycott, Baycott, Withers, Jay Wash, and High. And Okonkwo was out there, scored the last bucket of the half. Those guys, they struggled a little bit defensively, but they still kind of kept things together. They didn't give up the lead and go into halftime with a deficit, and they were able to Band-Aid that thing together and get to the second half. And I think that's a testament to this team. And they win 11 deep. There was, I think, Paxton Wojcik had a 6-minute stretch in the second half where he was on the floor. And there was a lineup. I wrote it down. I'm gonna have to go back. It'll be in our post game coverage, but I'm trying to think what the lineup was now. But Okonkwo and High were out there, and it was a group that probably hasn't spent much time together, even in practice. I know that they have, but relatively speaking, they probably haven't. So that was an interesting thing, and I think that that's one of those aspects of the season that you look back at and say that was big. They did that, and now they know that Okonkwo can help. He came in having played 26 minutes, played 8 against Syracuse, 8 against Charleston Southern, and that was pretty much – and then he had 3 minutes of the game, and then it was 2 minutes. That was pretty much it. So and what's interesting is on Friday when we were asking Hubert in the press conference about Quentin Post, the big man from BC, and kind of comparing the challenge that PJ Hall of Clemson gave them. And Hubert said, it's going to require everybody, not just Armando. And then he mentioned Jalen Washington. Then he said James. And I thought, he said James. I haven't heard him say James in a while. So I asked him today, after a lot of the Okonkwo stuff was asked to Hubert, I said, yesterday you mentioned him. I said, is that because he's been coming in practice and he's getting closer to the point where if you need to use him to a day like today, in a day like today that you can? I said, he was presence of mind. Hubert said, yes. He kind of went back to what he said about Jalen Withers yesterday. And this has been sort of the theme on Jalen Withers this past week. And it began with Jalen saying himself, is it took him a while to get comfortable being at Carolina. Mm-hmm. It took him a while to get comfortable being in a different program, doing things a program does, thinking of himself as a North Carolina Tar Heel, being buddies with North Carolina Tar Heels, going to school at North Carolina. James Okonkwo didn't come until late summer. Yeah. Remember, he committed, and then he went and played in that tournament over in Europe for the British national team. So he didn't really get to Chapel Hill until August. So think about that. Jalen Withers had a couple months on him. So Hubert said the comfort aspect for him is something that is really starting to take form now. And voila, when a guy's head's clear, he's going to play a little bit better. He's going to come closer to reaching his peak at that specific stage in his game. And I think that's what we saw a little bit from Okonkwo, and it gave the team a lift. This is a club that does not lack confidence, Jacob. They know that they could deal with scenarios, and they dealt with scenarios again today. They overcame and got a win. And I think that first half, being a giant Band-Aid, getting them to the second half was huge.
Yeah, no, it was massive. Okonkwo even had the alley-oop from Cadeau right before the half, which gave only points of the game for Okonkwo, but that did give Carolina a 3-point lead at the break, like I mentioned earlier.
He had a big save, by the way. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but he had a really big save on a ball going out of bounds. I think they scored on that possession. That was in the second half.
Yep.
He entered the game 3 different times.
Yeah, 8 minutes today. And, 3 rebounds as well. A guy who hasn't played a ton of minutes, like you mentioned a few minutes ago, but again, he's coming in and he's contributing in a positive way. And we've said that a lot about Carolina's bench guys this year. And Okonkwo, again, a guy that steps up on the road in ACC play and helps the Tar Heels kind of grind this one out, for lack of a better word. But let's keep it moving. Second thing I want to talk about, Armando, Cormac, and Harrison Ingram combined for just 6 points in the first half, but had 29 combined points in the second half. I mean, those are your guys right there. You talk about experience. I know Cormac and Harrison Ingram are new to the program, but they've played a lot of college basketball. Armando, a guy in his 5th year, played a lot of college basketball at North Carolina. Those are the guys you need to play well in order to win games like this. I know RJ Davis led the way again. Yeah. He's kind of been that consistent guy for the Tar Heels where you kind of know what you're going to get from him on a nightly basis. But these 3 guys in the performance in the second half, not only combining for 29 points, AJ, but making big plays too. I tweeted after the game that, and I've tweeted this a few times this year, especially on road games in the league, going back to Clemson as another example, even Pittsburgh in some ways, where this team isn't necessarily playing great at times, but they're making plays when they need to make plays. And it's often these 3 guys right here, and throw RJ Davis into the mix. So again, that second half performance from these 3 guys in particular, you throw RJ Davis into that mix as well. That's what propelled Carolina to a 10-point win. They were absolutely massive in the second half.
Well, they were dudes in the second half. They were dudes in every sense of the word. There was a lot of trash talking going on. And
it seemed like it on TV.
Cormac was getting into it, a lot of different guys. He got into it with Harris for a while. I even asked him after the game. I said, because there were other examples of it that was going on all game, and even the fans. And I asked Cormac, I said, is it a mistake for teams to talk trash and try to pull you guys down that lane? And he didn't. I don't think he wanted to say yes because he didn't want to have any kind of bulletin board material moving forward or accuse the team. Okay, well, we can really get into their heads. But I think it is a mistake because you've got rugged dudes out there. Cormac is, bless his heart, man. He was battling Quentin Post for a couple of boards, and Quentin got one over him and had a putback laying right in front of me. And Cormac was doing everything in his power. But, there's only so much you can do with a 7-footer who may end up playing in the league. So, but he battled, man. I mean, you could see the sweat coming off him. You could see the grimace when he was trying to hedge him out with his hip, and didn't work that time. But the thing about it is, he's not it doesn't dissuade him from continuing to do that. Cormac Ryan has one motor. He knows one way of playing the game, and he did that throughout, but certainly it paid more dividends in the second half. Harrison Ingram, you could say the exact same thing. Harrison is like the nicest dude you're ever going to talk to.
Yeah.
He is such a nice guy. Honestly, if he wasn't 6'7", you wouldn't know he's an athlete, right? He's articulate. He's nice. He's the kind of guy that he'll go out of his way to help you. He'll carry boxes of Girl Scout cookies down the street for girls if there's too many in the wagon and they're falling over, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But he gets on the court and he's a beast, a total beast. His game is not about numbers. He has not scored more than 11 points in a game since the UConn game. But he's had, I think, 5 double-digit rebound games. He had a double-double today. 11 and 13. That's who he is. He had a few assists. He's swatting the ball away, a couple strips. He's banging in there defensively. There were times where he was on Quentin Post, and he even said afterward, he's like, man, he goes, that's a legit 7 feet. That dude's tall.
He's a big dude.
He's a big, and he's coordinated. He's got a lot of game. He keeps the ball up high. He's a really skilled dude. And he's got, and Harrison just plays with that same edge. And then you throw Armando out there. He didn't take a shot in the first half. And he picked up his 3rd foul with 17:37 left in the game. And I'm thinking, well, shoot, Armando he got off to a good start, and he's going to end up going to the bench now. I kind of wanted to see what he would do against Post. I wanted to watch that matchup. Hubert yells out to him. He's got 3 fouls. Armando just gives him a thumbs up.
I remember that. Saw it on TV.
Really? It showed on TV?
Yeah, you can see the thumbs up from Armando. Yeah.
And Hubert let him stay in there, and there's 2 prongs to this. Number one, first year Hubert, second year Hubert would have pulled him. He would have given that leash. Armando would have perhaps, in any of his first 4 years, maybe committed that 4th foul pretty quickly. He didn't foul again. He came out for a 4-minute period and was on the court the rest of the way, and he was awesome. When you talk about the little things on the floor that help teams win, Armando was doing them. Armando owned the lane. Armando challenged stuff. He had at least 1 block. He had 2 block shots during that period. One, Post was squaring to the basket and going up, and Armando came from behind and just crushed the ball. You could hear it. His hand hit the ball from where I was sitting. And he played at a very high level of effort and intensity, but he played smarter than he used to. I'm not saying he wasn't smart before, but he is exceptionally smart as a basketball player now. He understands, don't do this reach because that ain't the right thing to do, but go ahead and go after that swat because it'll work in your favor, even if you don't get it. He just plays so much smarter now. His movement is so much more economized than it used to be. And the 3 of those guys together, bowing up and being the kind of dudes they need to be that march you through a tournament, they were that in the second half. Cormac had that foul he drew at the shot clock, which I don't know what TV show they didn't show replays in there, but man, what a crafty play. He knew it was going. He was off balance. He didn't. Sometimes the Tar Heels, if I'm going to criticize something, sometimes when a dude gets tied up, nobody goes to meet the ball too often. They're sort of left to just fire up an off balance shot. And Cormac was in that situation, and he got it off before the shot clock violation and drew the foul and hit the free throws. And then you think about Harrison. Roy used to always say, you got to be tough. Toughness is also making big shots. How about that 3 Harrison hit from the right wing? Yeah, it's big time. I mean, you think of all the grit. You think of all the yapping he's doing out there. Every time a player hits the floor, he's sprinting over there because he's letting the other team know, we'll throw down. He does all that gritty stuff, but the 3 can look very nice. And he made the skill play, and that's the thing. All those guys did the gritty stuff, but they made the skill plays. How about Armando's jumper at the free throw line? Yeah, beautiful flip back from RJ on that play. And by the way, we're going to talk about this in just a minute, but man, they were really connected offensively in the second half. Most of the baskets were assisted, and a lot of that's because those older dudes were out there and they were playing basketball. They were just playing ball, and when those 4, including RJ, when they're out there playing ball, it's a pretty good team. Yeah. I mean, our very own David Siss was tweeting about it during the game, but he was saying how just better of a team North Carolina is when Baycott's out there. It's not necessarily about production for him, but the amount of attention that he kind of requires
frees up Carolina's guard play a little bit more, which allows them to get better shots and kind of get in the lane a little bit more and dish it off to Armando at times. So just having him in there is huge.
I asked him about dragging post away from the lane and allowing some of those drives. Like he's creating space now that he never used to create by dragging dudes out. And because they screened a lot in the second half. That's the most I've seen this team screen in a while. And Armando's screens were immaculate.
Yeah.
They were top notch. So much of what he did, it's just his movements. He keeps his mind on an even keel all the way through. He gets a lot of crap from people. I was talking with somebody in the program about this recently. He gets a lot of crap from people because he doesn't finish great around the rim. He's been finishing a little bit better lately, but so we already know that. I mean, none of that's a surprise. He's been that guy for 5 years, but appreciate all the other things he does now that he used to not do. If there is a statistical chart for intangibles, the kinds of intangibles that a coach can see with the naked eye that most of us don't always see, right? If there was a statistical chart for those things, Armando would be a stat sheet stuffer. He does so many little things so well, and he is the perfect temperament at this juncture in his career to be a part of a team doing what this team is doing. He doesn't get enough credit. It's not just about his numbers, man. It's about so many other things that he brings to the floor. And I applaud him for doing that because I told you before, he's kind of doing what Tyler Hansbrough did his senior year when it was very clear that Ty Lawson was the guy. And Tyler very comfortably kind of stood over to the side a little bit and said, okay, Ty, take us to the promised land. And he did. And Armando's done that with RJ, but there's a lot of other guys that Armando is allowing their games to breathe. He's not occupying so much of everything. And because of that, they're not stagnant or on either end. And because of that, they're winning basketball games.
Yeah, I do agree. He's not getting enough love this season because I think people are just looking at the stats and being like, "Oh, yeah, he's not doing a lot." But
he's having a fantastic year.
He is, man. He really is. I couldn't agree with you more, especially with that kind of Hansbrough to Ty Lawson comparison that we've talked about previously. But moving on, last thing, as we always tend to do with these, let's wrap it up with what this means. Quick turnaround for the Tar Heels. Wake at home on Monday evening, so they don't have a ton of a respite in between this game. But said it earlier, 15-3. 8 straight wins, 7-0 in ACC play for the first time since 2015-2016. Won 6 consecutive ACC games by double digits for the first time since doing that in 10 consecutive ACC games in 1992-1993 season. I think we all remember what went on to happen with that team. So again, AJ, I could sit here for 5 minutes and just list off, just go look at, Steve Kirshner's email that he sends out after the game and just list off all the positive, records and things that Carolina's doing right now with this win streak and with how they've performed in ACC play. But it's just a good basketball team. And again, I keep saying it seems like every road game, especially in the league this year, where Carolina's had to grind these kind of tough, not the prettiest games in the world out, and they find ways to win. They end up winning by double digits, like I mentioned a second ago, for 6 consecutive ACC games. This is a team that, even when it's not at its best, it plays harder than most of its opponents. It plays better than most of its opponents when it matters, and it finds ways to kind of pull these games out where you look at the score afterwards, you're like, well, 10-point win. That didn't necessarily reflect what happened today, but man, they made plays down the stretch, which led to a more comfortable victory than it probably was. So it seems like this is what I keep ending these on. But if you're a Carolina fan, I know Carolina fans are feeling really good about this team. You should be feeling really good about this team. I don't think they've peaked yet. I think they can still get a lot better, but they're finding and continuing to win basketball games, and that's what's most important.
I think it does reflect how they played the 10-point margin, and I'll tell you why. It's a 40-minute game, and this game was pushed 40 minutes. So what if some of the runs were earlier and they built the margin? They scored on 10 of their last 11 possessions. They out-rebounded BC by 15. At one point, I think over the last 32 minutes, they out-rebounded BC by 18. They kept BC from going off from the perimeter. BC's a pretty good offensive team. They kept them well under their averages, and they kept them from going nuts on the perimeter. They did a good job. They never really get into a groove. I have not seen all the stats yet, but they didn't allow any fast break points in the first half, which is something this team has really been outstanding at, and I'll crunch the numbers. They'll be in my tidbits report. And by the way, Kirsch's all his post game notes, the emails to the media, that's always on our boards on our site. This team did everything they had to do late. They got stops when they had to, and they're just unfazed. There is no panic. It goes back to the Radford game, when I think you and I did a drop after the Radford game, and I said that was pretty impressive. They were pushed a little bit, and boom, they went. They did it against Lehigh, did it against Northern Iowa, and they started doing it more. And they already established that they had that kind of dig, like they could dig deep down and do those things. Then the parts have slowly started coming together. And Jalen Withers, I asked him today, I said, "Are you there yet? Or is that full comforts there?" And he didn't say yes. Think about that. He's played really well the last 3 games, and he still has more comfort to gain, which means he's only going to get better. And now you see the Okonkwo factor, the fact that people were so worried about how many bigs they were going to have. I think they're plenty big enough. They got plenty of bigs. They got plenty of brawn. And Elliot Cadeau is playing with more confidence. Cadeau thought he could take Jaden Zachary every time today. And there were times he did. I just thought that Elliot – he'll learn from it. I thought he did a lot of really nice things, but sometimes he tried to get the shot. He tried to get the bucket. And when he drove in the lane, they didn't get enough points out of it. Either he didn't convert or he didn't kick it out for an open 3 in the corner or something like that. So he'll learn from it. He's going to get better. So what this means is they're 7-0 in the ACC play. They've won 8 in a row. They've won all the games by double figures. They've out-rebounded 6 of their last 7 opponents by 10 or more, and the NC State one was 10, and then some tweaking went on afterward about the stats ended up +8. So the last 3 games, Carolina's out-rebounded its opponents by 50.
Yeah, it was 15 today, by the way. So
yeah, 43-28, I think. So what are the UNC basketball boxes that most people watching and listening to this have known and been comfortable with their whole life? Rebounding, transition, stopping other teams' transition, and then closing teams out. Sharing the ball, closing teams out. That's what this team's doing. This is a North Carolina basketball team. 100%. Remember last year, every once in a while I'd say, boy, they kind of look like North Carolina today.
Yeah, in spurts, yeah.
They look like North Carolina every game. And let's remember, not every North Carolina team scored 90 points every time they walked on the court. The really good ones, the ones that win titles, have to grind that stuff out. Think back to 2005. Think of the Villanova game in the Sweet 16. They had to grind that thing out.
Yeah.
Melvin Scott's free throws.
Yeah.
You think of the 93 team that you mentioned, their regional final against Cincinnati. They had to grind that thing out. And I think that went into overtime. Dean had to go to a box and one, I think, against Nick Van Exel. It's something he rarely ever did. You think about 09 didn't have to grind it out. They just
just whooped everybody.
17 won the national championship game while being out rebounded and shooting 36% from the floor or whatever. They had to grind it out. They had to grind out that game against Arkansas and Greenville.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So they had to grind out the one against Oregon. So grinding it out is basketball. It's not always going to be poetry in motion. You got to have the grind out factor because you're going to find yourself in the mess every once in a while. So how do you handle the mess? This team has shown that it is quite comfortable in a mess because it always comes out first.
Yeah, no, they're good, man. I've said it before, but they remind me of some of the more vintage Carolina teams like you just listed. Remains to be seen what's going to happen. I'm not sitting here saying Carolina's going to win a national championship, but playing like they are, if they can continue to improve, they should 100% want to be one of those teams that can make a run in the tournament. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But again, still a lot of basketball left. We'll see what happens on Monday night. Yeah, quick turnaround. Very quick turnaround. Feels like the first. Is this kind of the first quick turnaround of the year? I don't remember any other. Quick turnaround
like this. And that's a matchup. We're not going to do a drop before now and then, but that's a matchup. Wake could present some problems for Carolina. Who's going to guard Andrew Carr?
Yeah, it's a good point.
It's going to be because he spends more time on the perimeter than PJ Hall and Quentin Post. Yeah. PJ Hall and Quentin Post get a lot of their perimeter stuff starting from inside. Andrew Carr doesn't even step in the lane sometimes.
I know.
So
they're
that's
solid
a challenge. Well, they can score. They can score. So that's going to be a test. They're long. They got some length in some areas, but this Carolina team's really good, and they're getting better.
Yeah, no doubt about it, AJ. And again, if you're a Carolina fan, you're watching this, I would assume you're a Carolina fan. Go ahead and like the video below if you're feeling good about this team. AJ, I'm gonna let you run. I'm gonna let you go back out in the snow in a little bit up there in Boston. How is the weather up there?
18 degrees. 18 degrees, and I was walking from the parking deck to the arena. I had to walk into the wind.
Oh, geez, that's brutal, man.
And there's some people out here, these Bostonites or whatever they call them up here, Bostonians.
Yeah, there you go.
Walk around like, oh, it's kind of cold.
Yeah, a little chilly.
Around, and I'm good. And I'm like,
if it makes you feel any better, it's going to dip below 20 here tonight. So it's not going to be much.
That doesn't make me feel any better.
Hey, man, you'll be in the arena for another few hours anyway, so you're good.
My wife will have the heat at like 80. It'll cost me $150 to heat the house tonight.
Sounds like my wife, man. She smokes me out sometimes.
Well, my daughter hates it, though. My daughter sleeps with her window slightly up.
Oh, I could do that. Maybe not quite to that extreme, but I like it cold when I'm sleeping. I don't know about that, but I like it cold. I can get behind that. If it's hot, I have it. Not sleeping.
I have an 8:20 a.m. flight. Let's hope that it's not as adventurous as getting here.
Yeah, I know it's delayed
flights. I had some fun on Twitter with that. Well, I had 2 cancellations and 3 delays. I got my rental car after 2 a.m.
Oh, man.
Got to the hotel by 3. Had to do a little bit of work. Bed by 4. Sleep by 5.
God, that's brutal, man. That's absolutely
This will be a 32-hour stop in Boston.
Hey, well, it's only 7:15 right now, so I guess it could be a lot worse. It could be a lot later, I should say.
That's true, but I mean, I'm going to be working for a few more hours.
Yeah, so. you got some time left in you. I'll let you. We might as well get out of here so you can
get your staff pick, and send me a text to remind me to send out the staff text.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely send mine in. A quick turnaround, like you said, so got to be on that to get those in before it's too late. So I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Make sure you guys keep it locked to TargetIllustrated.com. Links in the description below. You can sign up for a premium subscription, just $8.33 a month. Again, links in the description. Make sure you like, share, hit that notification bell as well, and subscribe. And we'll see y'all next time. Thanks.